Hallo und herzlich willkommen bei Wir müssen reden, der Podcast für Scrum Master, Agile Coaches und diejenigen, die es werden wollen. Hier geht es um die Themen Organisationsentwicklung, Arbeiten in agilen Teams, der Umgang mit Komplexität und Leadership. Es geht um deine Fragen aus deinem konkreten Alltag und wir geben dir Denkanstöße. Schön, dass du wieder eingeschaltet hast und los geht's. Einen wunderschönen guten Tag wünsche ich dir. Schön, dass du auch diese Woche wieder eingeschaltet hast und wie du am Titel bereits schon gemerkt hast, ist diese Folge auf Englisch. Wie versprochen ist das der Auszug aus meinem Konferenztalk aus Vilnius mit dem Titel Why Scrum Fails You Again and Again, den ich zusammen mit meinem Kollegen Martin Berg aus Schweden von Agile People gehalten habe. Diesen Vortrag findest du auch auf YouTube, da wird vielleicht einiges deutlich klarer, weil wir schöne Visualisierung genutzt haben. Aber nichtsdestotrotz hier einfach die reine Audioversion. Viel Spaß!
Okay, welcome everyone. So maybe you can tell me what the hell is going on lately in organizations. And I think it must be that the absurdity is so obvious that it's no longer noticeable anymore. And here's a fun experiment. When you put trolls in a cage with a ladder and bananas on top, then of course the trolls try to grab the tasty fruits because they like bananas very much. And when they grab the fruits, then you use a very strong water jet and you make them wet and you interrupt their endeavor. And of course they don't like it very much. And soon no one of the trolls will climb the ladder anymore and grab the tasty fruits. But here's the funny thing. When you swap the trolls and you bring a new one in, then of course he sees the tasty fruits and he wants to climb the ladder again. And as soon as he steps on the ladder, the other trolls try to stop him because they don't want to get wet again. And you continue to do so. And after some while, when you swapped all the trolls, no one will grab the tasty fruits any longer, and no one knows why. So, why am I telling you all this? I've been working as an Agile coach in different projects and as a developer for several years now, and I've seen a lot of these trolls, and in fact, I've been one of them. So, no, I'm not saying that people are trolls, but you know what I mean. So, I have two examples for you. The first, I've been working in an assignment for a very big automotive German company, and money was no issue. So the product we were developing, it was a key element of their 5-year strategy, and we were developing like mad, just features after features. And I think it was not very useful because it was nothing to test against the market needs. We were just developing like crazy. And it felt like it's just about developing fixed stories than finding out what the user really needs. And the really funny thing is that even the customer is not allowed to talk to their users. It was the responsibility of another department. So you want to guess what happened with the project? Exactly. 3 years later and $150 million poorer, the project was dead. Second example. Big manufacturing company in Germany. And I've been assigned to this project after 5 years, so a lot of these trolls have been swapped again, and no one was grabbing the tasty fruits any longer. But luckily, they had a lot of users, and they could test which features were used and which not. But unfortunately, they didn't. And so I talked to the developers and we tried to find out what we're going to do. But I've never been part of the decision if a feature should be developed or not. And third, one thing which makes me really angry, I think, is that do you know what ownership is about? I think that ownership means that you have the authority to stop things. And knowing that, I have the confession to make that I've never met a single product owner in my life because they can't decide anything. It's just like, so real story, one of the product owners once told me, I cannot decide, it's beyond my pay grade. So true story, sad but true. So but what was the conclusion then, back then? Well, it's definitely something about the mindset, right? We need to develop our mindset, and it cannot be the solution that we put old-fashioned project managers in the project and then we name them product owners and then that's that. So we need to coach them, we need to develop their mindset, and we have workshops and stuff like that, of course. And the second thing, to all the organizations who want to be hip and agile, I think please pay a little bit more attention to your culture. Yeah, because, I mean, culture is very important, and with your hierarchies and your old-fashioned cultures, you won't attract any new talents. Yeah, that was back then, and luckily, I grew up.
One more. Yeah, he grew up to me. And we moved to Sweden as well. Germany sucks. No, just kidding. Sweden is great. Stories. That was it's all about, right? If you know the stories, you can understand the system. He tells the story. He tells things that is working. He tells things that is not working. Have you heard a story about the Indian elephant? No? Okay, so once upon a time, there was a village when there were 5 blind men in that village. And they heard about there was a new creature that has arrived to the village. And they wanted to take a look at it. So they went there to take a look at this animal. And all of them ended up in different parts of this elephant to see the different spaces of it. And when they spoke out and described what they were feeling, one of them said, it's like a rope, this elephant. It's rope type of creature. No, it's more like tree trunks. Or, no, it's like a brick stone building of some sort. It's very big. No, it's like spears. I can feel it's very pointy and everything. No, I feel it's a snake. Get away from here. And they started to argue, of course. They had very different view of this large elephant. And that is what happens when you take a look at different systems. So my younger me here, he was from the part of the system where he was in, feeling this frustration of the organization. And yeah, we need to develop a culture that helps us to implement this solution in the best way. And of course, he's right. But maybe he only sees the snake. So what you need to do when you want to change a system or an organization, you need to see all the stories that is within this system. And I use a tool. I need to click one more time. Kevin, if you were in this hall before here, the previous one, he also showed this. But I made a picture of it, a 3D version of it, to see that if it's possible for me to illustrate the different perspective of it in a better way. So I want to go through it very quickly. And I want this clicker to work. So on the top here, we have what is called the clear domain. In the clear domain, you know that if I do A, then B will happen. And it does that all the time. So we have a way of understanding, and we can see the coherence between the things that we do. In the complicated domain, you can do the same. You can analyze and understand what needs to be done in order to, and then you can do A, B, and C, and D. And those things will happen at the same time. But you need a person that is an expert in that. And then you have the chaotic domain, where you just need to act. You're in the chaotic, and you need to act your way out of it. And in the complex, you need to probe, sense, respond. You test your things through. But the interesting thing with the Knevi model is not these domains. It's actually the transitions between the domains. That's the powerful thing in the Knevi model. It's how you transition between all these areas. I just want to go a very quick example of how you can transition in a clear domain. So maybe pretend that I have a party. And I have a recipe. I really like one. I've done it several times. And it's always successful. I can give my people in the party or the food that they need. But I want to make it, I have a new party, I want to make it a bit different this time. So I employ a specialist, a chef, to implement this for me. So then I move the things from the clear to the complicated. And he, of course, changes his things because he has experience and knowledge on how to implement this brand new solution. And it's a hit. But next time when I want to have the same thing, I want to do it myself. So I ask him, can I get the recipe from what you did? This was much better than the one that I had. So he writes down a recipe for me. So now I'm back in clear again because I have a recipe. I can follow it. It's just do the things. But if I over-constrain the things now, let's say I have a party, a new party, and I want to invite all the guests, but I have a too tight time constraint, so I don't have time to practice the new recipe or do things. I just follow it, and everything burns, and all the things go to hell. I will fall down to the cliff of the chaotic. So there are some examples of how you can transition between all these areas. But I think my younger me was frustrated because he was talking about Scrum. So where is Scrum in all this? Yeah, in the Knevi model, in the more recent parts, they have actually added something called the liminal domain. You can see it in green here, and you can sort soon see it in here. It's how you transition. It's called the liminal because it's about moving between different states. And not to be too complicated and stay too long here. I will just focus on the one where Scrum is. It's between complex and complicated. So Scrum actually has utility if you want to move things from the complex to the complicated space. So you want to make things that you don't have a big, deep understanding of how cause and effect it has, and move it to something where you have predictability. So implement the solution, makes it more predictable. Right. But remember, in an organization, you can't apply Scrum everywhere because you have utility in all these places. And in all the organization is this. So when you're discussing solutions with people and how they understand what they need to do, maybe a manager have a view of that, yeah, but this is a complicated thing. But when you talk to a developer, maybe they feel it's complex. And having that understanding and have this looking glass when you're talking to different types of people in your organization, you can start to build a new story, a new way of working with things. And I think Jürgen Appello actually had a good approach to that with his unfixed solution, where you can actually apply different ways of doing things using this understanding. He had a different way of implementing and sharing complexity and chaos and other things, but I think this is a helpful one. So David.
Hello, older me.
Hello, much more handsome younger me.
Yes.
What's your view?
Yeah, coming back to the stories I told you before. So Knevi for me is like a looking glass, right? A lens through which you can view the world or organizations, social systems in this case. And for me, it feels like that organizations don't know the differentiation between these different domains, and they just want to try to find this one fix-all solution. And even using SAFe is just the same approach. You have one thing and you do that and then you're successful, and it cannot work like this. So Dave Snowden, who is the inventor of this awesome framework, he also says that you cannot scale in complex systems by imitation. You need to decompose the system. And that's in part what Appello was talking about, right? You have different patterns and you can try to apply them. Yes. So all the things I was telling you about is that the companies assume that you are uncomplicated. They think you can plan, you can business, you have a bunch of business analysts and you do the analysis, and that's how the market wants its stuff. And then you have the poor developers and they do their stuff, and after 6 months you just release it and then you're happy. But it doesn't work like this. Yeah, so that's the key message here.
Yeah. would you like to take this one?
Okay, but we also promised you to give you a tangible result or something you can change right away. So what I usually do with my teams, if they want to, then that I show them Kinevin, and in the refinement, for example, I make the differentiations between these different kinds of domains. So each task we are doing, I ask the teams, okay, please just categorize them. Is it a clear, complicated, complex, or a chaotic problem? Usually it's not chaotic, I hope, but sometimes it's more complex, sometimes it's complicated, sometimes it's clear. And depending on in which domain we are in, we use different estimation techniques, or we don't estimate at all. So in clear, you just have timing. You just estimate time. It takes 5 minutes, and then we're done. In complicated, there you can use relative estimations, like t-shirt sizes, for example. And there we have, okay, he fall down very slowly, so usually the presentation was different, but yeah, anyway. And in complex, there we use time boxes. We don't know what the outcome will be, just, okay, try for 1 week and then we are done.
Yeah, and multiple parallel experiments as well.
Yes, that's very important. In complex, we have failed to save experiments in parallel, not in sequence, like Scrum does usually. Yeah. And in chaotic, okay, just do something. I don't know, just do something to transition back to complex. Yeah, and then you can move on again.
The system is down, just do something.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's something you can start with your teams right away, make them aware of these different domains and use different estimations for the different problems you have in your system.
Yeah.
Yes, okay, so you may want to close.
Yeah, sure. We would just want to leave you with this quote from Edward Deming. Each system is perfectly designed to give you exactly what you want, what you are getting today. So if you want to change the system, you need to see what you want to get. And you can do that, of course. Start with the stories.
And stop changing the mindsets of people. It doesn't work. Change the system. Thank you very much.
Okay, I think it's present time, right? So who has a question? I see 2 books in Daniel's hands. Anybody? Anybody?
Good.
Yeah. So you mentioned that during refinements, like you categorize if it's clear, like confused, complex, chaotic, but if it's confused part, what are you doing then? Like how you come up in which phase you want to add?
So when you do the time estimation, you usually use cards. So first we vote on which domain it is, and based on what domain we are in, we might be not in unison on that. Some people might feel that this is complex, while others will feel that it's complicated. Okay, we need to have a discussion about that, because how can we know what we estimate if we can't even decide which domain we are in? So
it might be an indicator that you need to slice the problem. You have parts which are complicated and other parts which are complex. You want to be very clear which problem you're facing.
Okay, thank you.
Pardon?
I'll bring you a microphone, okay?
And then the question is, what teams think about this approach, like having this complex and all this stuff? What they say during the retros, do they like this approach or not?
It opens up for interesting discussions. And in some organizations, they feel, okay, but why are they giving us this all complicated problems? We are a team, we should work with complex problems and not with this clear problems. So it brings up discussions, and as a Scrum Master and Agile coach, I need to work with those things to go to management and make things different from that perspective. And it also helps to actually slice the system. So if people view that the things, like David said before, this is complex, maybe we should actually invest some probe sense response time to actually understand more of the system or the implementation that we need to do in smaller iterations, time-boxed, so that we can slice them better. So it gives us an understanding. So sometimes we call that, what is it called? Forget. I didn't remember. I will say you afterward when I see you.
Congratulations on your present.
There's another question there.
Of course.
Yeah, that's okay. This one for free.
No more books.
A couple of minutes ago, you just mentioned that do not try to change people's minds, change system. Yeah, I assume this is out of your experience. Yeah. Okay. What have you done to change people's minds? At least top 3 actions that you did, and you failed to do that. Or just
help to change habits. So, like Jürgen said in the starting point, so the behaviors and mindsets of people are in the habits. You change the habits that they follow and dare to do, and help them to develop new habits. That's not mindset. It's habits. After the habits comes mindset, I think. But we can discuss that.
Okay, last question probably.
Also, very similar question, but in the chaotic stage. How do you change the system to encourage people to experiment more?
Ooh. So one thing that you can do, if you follow the Knevi model, is to build a very safe environment with very low constraints. So you can do whatever in this, but you have to do whatever. You can't escape it, but it's free for you to escape when the time box is over. And therefore you can start to help people to find space for innovation or doing things. It's like the 20% rule of Agile, from Google, for instance, where they have 20% you need to do something for yourself or inventing things, which has resulted in Gmail and other things that they have created. So that's a way of creating those things.
So I just remember another example from Dave Snowden, which I liked very much. So he explains the Knevi model with a birthday party with small children. And he says, when you have just 20 kids, and you're doing nothing, it's chaotic. They're just all over the place. But then you start to constrain the system, like maybe a line, and he really literally says, okay, when you cross that line, you little bastard, you die. Okay? And then you have a constraint, this is your area, you can move here, and then he applies stuff to play around with. So then you apply maybe a football or, I don't know, some Lego. Other toys, Lego, exactly. And then you see where the system attracts to, naturally, and then you put more energy into that, and other things you leave out. And it might change over time. So, yeah, that's another example. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Das war der Podcast Wir müssen reden. Wenn du eine Frage stellen möchtest oder auch einfach wissen möchtest, welche Fragen wir als nächstes beantworten, wann die nächsten Live-Sessions stattfinden oder wann wir Sonderveranstaltungen anbieten, das alles erfährst du auf unserer Webseite wir-müssen-reden.net.